For most of us, a car is so much more than just a machine. It's our ticket to freedom, it's where we make road trip memories, and it's the one place we absolutely have to trust to keep our families safe. And that trust, it all hinges on a basic promise of safety from the people who built it. And really, that's what it all comes down to, right? A trusted sanctuary. It sounds simple, but that phrase really captures the deep relationship we have with our cars. We literally put our lives and the lives of the people we love most inside these metal boxes every single day. And we do it based on a silent promise of integrity from the manufacturer. So, what happens when that promise is just completely shattered? This number, 271, that's the official US death toll from just one scandal, the whole Ford and Firestone tire disaster. It is a brutal, jarring reminder of the human cost when that trust is betrayed. And here's the thing, that kind of betrayal, it wasn't a one-off. Today, we're gonna dig into the common DNA that links some of the auto industry's biggest, most consequential failures. Because while the scandals all look different on the surface, VW's emissions versus GM's ignition switches, they all share this deeply disturbing pattern of putting profits ahead of people. So let's start with the first pattern, which is the most blatant form of betrayal, active, calculated deceit. We're not talking about simple mistakes or little oversights here. We're talking about deception being designed right into the product. It's a feature, not a bug. And the poster child for this has to be Volkswagen's Deceit device. The key thing to understand here is that this wasn't some broken mechanical part. No, this was a brilliant but totally malicious piece of software, code that was deliberately written by engineers for one purpose: to fool regulators. So how'd they pull it off? Well, it was actually kinda genius in a really sinister way. The car's computer was smart enough to know when it was being tested. It could sense the specific conditions of a lab. The steering wheel is straight, only 2 wheels are spinning. In that moment, bam, it turned on all the pollution controls to pass the test with flying colors. But the second it got out on a real road, the software just switched all those controls right back off, giving the driver better performance at a huge cost to the environment. And the real-world impact of this? It is absolutely staggering. Out on the street, these so-called clean diesel cars were pumping out nitrogen oxides at up to 40 times the legal limit. This wasn't a little fudge factor. This was a massive, full-scale deception with very real consequences for air quality and public health. But this kind of cold, hard calculation has a really long history. Just look at the infamous Ford Pinto case. Ford knew, they absolutely knew its fuel tank design was a death trap in a rear-end collision. A fix would have cost just $11 a car, but instead, an internal memo, the Pinto memo, calculated that it was actually cheaper to just pay for the projected deaths and injuries, a cool $49.5 million, than to fix the cars. I mean, think about that. They literally did the math and decided it was cheaper to let people die. But here's the thing, betrayal isn't always some big, active conspiracy. Sometimes it's something quieter, something more insidious. It's a slow, creeping corporate paralysis, a culture of inaction where everyone knows about a problem, but nobody does anything until it's way, way too late. The General Motors ignition switch timeline is the perfect, horrifying example of this deadly delay. Get this, engineers first spotted the defect in 2001. A simple fix costing less than $1 per car was rejected in 2005. Then, in 2006, they secretly redesigned the part, but, and this is key, they didn't change the part number, making it almost impossible to track which cars were dangerous. It took until 2014, 13 years later, for a recall to finally happen after more than 100 people had already died. So how on earth does something like that happen? Well, there's this chilling term for it, the normalization of deviance. Basically, a known dangerous flaw gets talked about in so many meetings for so long without being fixed that it stops being an emergency. It just becomes another line item, a manageable issue in a spreadsheet, a routine cost of doing business, until the body count gets too high to ignore. And this kind of dangerous culture, it doesn't just stop with the car makers themselves. It trickles down to their suppliers. Just look at Takata. To save a few bucks, they used a cheap, notoriously unstable chemical, ammonium nitrate, in their airbag inflators. They knew it was dangerous, and they allegedly faked and manipulated their test data for years to hide it. The result? The biggest auto recall in history, turning a device meant to save your life into a miniature grenade that could spray metal shrapnel right at your face. Okay, so eventually, the lies and the delays, they always come to light. And when they do, the reckoning is almost always severe, both in terms of the billions of dollars it costs and in the permanent changes these tragedies force on the entire industry. Let's just talk about the financial hit for a second. For Volkswagen, the total bill for its Dieselgate scandal, when you add up all the fines, buybacks, and settlements, has now climbed past $30 billion. That is a massive, massive price to pay for a software shortcut. Next up, General Motors. That whole decade of inaction on their faulty ignition switch, it ended up costing the company around $2 billion in penalties and funds set up for the victims. And then there's Toyota, a brand that was literally built on trust and quality. They got hit with a $1.2 billion criminal penalty for deliberately misleading the public during their unintended acceleration crisis. You could argue the damage to their hard-won reputation was even more costly. But, the money is one thing. What's arguably more important are the permanent changes that come out of these tragedies. Each disaster you see here led directly to a new law or a new standard. The Ford/Firestone mess, that gave us the Tread Act, forcing car makers to report safety issues early. Dieselgate led to tougher real-world emissions testing. The Pinto case strengthened product liability laws for everyone. In a very real way, our modern safety rules are written in the blood of these victims. So, that brings us to today. After all these fines, all these new laws, has the industry actually learned its lesson? As we look down the road, with cars becoming more complex than ever, we have to ask ourselves, is new technology just giving them new ways to fail us? If you take a quick look at the current recall scene, you'll see the problem is far from solved. Recalls are just a constant reality. But the story's a bit different for each company. For instance, Ford has had the highest number of separate recall campaigns lately. But a single recall from a company like Tesla can affect the most vehicles at once, often through a software update. And meanwhile, the ghost of past failures like Takata is still haunting us, proving these problems can stick around for a very, very long time. And this is the really critical part. The way things can go wrong is changing. The next massive scandal might not be about a faulty fuel tank you can see and touch. It could be a fatal flaw buried in millions of lines of software code. It could be about the safety of electric vehicle batteries, the reliability of self-driving car data, or even the shady ways our personal data is being used. Deception in the digital age is just so much harder to spot. Which leaves us with this one big question. As our cars are transforming into computers on wheels, are we actually getting safer, more reliable machines? Or is the industry just getting smarter, finding new and more sophisticated ways to betray our trust? That, right there, is the crucial question for the road ahead.